Welcome to Stock Time to Improv. I'm Mary Scott with Business Riff, and I want startups to be wildly successful. One of the things you need to do early on is decide what type of business are you. And today we have Kent Varan from SCORE, and we're going to talk about just that. Thanks for coming, Kent.
Hi, Mary. Great to see you, and thanks for the opportunity today.
That's great. So let's talk about what types of businesses are possible for a business to decide to be.
Absolutely. Starting any business requires choosing a right structure. And so your business structure is going to impact tax liability, how you file your taxes, your personal liability exposure, how you set up your operations, and funding options. So it's very important early on to start thinking about your business goals, where you want to be long term, how you evaluate your risk and liability, your personal assets, how do those impact your business? Think about how you want to handle the administrative portion. For some businesses, IP ownership is a key consideration that you want to protect. And then important to think about planning for future growth. If you're starting a business yourself, what does that look like 2, 3 years down the road, and how would you like your business structure to look at that point? So the common types of business structures that we think about, and we encourage everybody to do this early on. One of the first considerations when you're setting up a business is to determine which business structure you want to use. So there's four that we think about: sole proprietorship, partnership, limited liability companies, and then corporations. And there's a couple of types. There's C-Corp and S-Corp that we can talk about. So those are kind of the four structures that we consider.
Okay, so let's take one at a time. The sole proprietorship, what are the pros and cons?
Yeah, absolutely. So think about this as you own your own business, okay? It's owned and operated by one person. You're the sole proprietor. This is the largest category. Most of the small businesses start as sole proprietorships. And why is that? Well, it's easy and inexpensive to set up. You have full control of the business decisions, good or bad, they're your decisions. And it's very simple from a tax standpoint. Your income is reported on your own tax return, on your personal tax return. Some of the downsides of a sole proprietorship would be just the potential impact on personal liability. It's really unlimited. Okay, there's no firewall between your personal assets, your home, your 401k, your bank accounts, and the business. If anything were to happen, those would be at risk. A second consideration here is how you document your business expenses. How easily can you separate what's a business expense and what's a personal expense? And that becomes important when you're filing taxes, when you're trying to raise capital.
Okay.
It
And
can be more difficult.
that would be the Schedule C on the tax forms.
Yes, it can be a little harder to raise capital here. It's based on your own financials. Okay, so not impossible, but that's also one of the downsides. But a very very popular business structure to get started.
And the partnership is just an extension of a sole proprietorship. There's still no firewall, but now you're dealing with two or more people who are equally liable.
Yeah, exactly. And we see fewer of these actually. It's a business that's owned by two or more people, could be co-founders, could be, someone that you're close with that you decide to start a business together with. The upside is you have shared responsibilities. Again, pretty simple to set up and do your tax filing, very flexible. You can decide who does what from a management standpoint. But as you mentioned, there is the personal liability. And in addition, it's a shared liability. So you're responsible for your partner's decisions and the potential impact there. So, but it is a way to get started.
Okay. And
Um,
then what I think is the most popular structure is the LLC, or the limited liability corporation.
it
What
is.
does, let's talk about those pros and cons.
Absolutely. And this is very close to the same number of businesses that file as an LLC as the sole proprietorship. It's right there, maybe second largest. There's more registration issues here. You have to register with the state that you're in, that you're going to sell product in. Um, but a big upside here is that it limits the personal liability. Okay, it creates that firewall between the business and the personal assets, and that's why a lot of people go this direction. Um, Minimal administrative costs. It's not a high dollar option to get set up when you register with the state, minimal fees. It's flexible from a management standpoint. On
Right.
taxes, it is a
Also makes
pass.
it more easy to, it makes it easier to sell. Yeah. I think you're
Yeah,
breaking up a little bit.
it absolutely does. It's a pass through from a tax standpoint, so the profits are taxed on the individual's personal return. It is more paperwork. One of the requirements is to set up an operating agreement, define ownership structure, management structure, taxes, accounting, and how all that will work. Um, Somewhat limited in terms of equity investors. You're going to need to raise money as the LLC, but you can do that. You're establishing a brand, and that is, then it'll be a separate company, and as you say, Mary, easier to pass along if you decide to exit the business.
Sure. And the other nice thing about an LLC is that you can always turn it into an S Corp or a C Corp if it needs to be done.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point. I mean, any of these options aren't permanent. Okay, you can always move from one to the other as your personal needs change, as the business changes, as the growth needs change, funding needs. So early on, important to think about how you start, which of the options fits best for your situation. Think about the growth aspect,
Mhm.
and then it's not permanent. You can adjust.
Should you discuss these things with an accountant or a lawyer when you're first setting up?
Absolutely. I mean, I think develop your thought process and think about, once again, what's your personal situation? What are your growth objectives? What's your asset profile, risk profile? Have all that in mind when you go speak with a CPA and legal counsel. It's not required to set up an LLC. I'd encourage any business to have a CPA that they're working with from an accounting and tax standpoint.
Yeah, I always tell people you need three members of your team when you're first starting. And it doesn't matter if they're paid or friends or whatever, but you need three. You need a marketing person, you need an accountant, and you need a lawyer.
And you need a lawyer.
Because the marketing person helps you make money, the accountant helps you keep most of it, and the lawyer stops you from losing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Um,
a lot of people think they can do an LLC on their own, but there's more to it than just filling out the paperwork online, right?
there is. I mean, that's a requirement. Once you go the LLC route versus sole proprietorship or partnership, you're filing, you're registering with the state. That's just a minimum requirement. But obviously, many, many aspects to consider in terms of how you grow the business, how you acquire customers, all those aspects.
So people need to pay attention and decide what kind of structure your business is going to be from the beginning. It can be changed into something later on, but you have to start with an actual business entity, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's never too early to start thinking about those things. You want to have a perspective. I always encourage people to have a perspective on which direction they want to go with this in terms of structure. So it's never too early to start considering some of the options and reach out to folks that have started a business that have insights into structure and taxing and those kinds of things.
Well, thank you so much, Kent Varan from SCORE. I'll put contact information into comments for people. And by the way, SCORE is a great organization wherever you are to get mentoring and assistance for your brand new business at no cost. So thanks again. And I'm
Thank
Mary
you.
Scott. I'm Mary Scott with Business Riff. I want startups to be wildly successful. One of the best things you can do to accomplish that is book a call with me at businessriff.com and join us again next time for Stuck, Time to Improv.